Welcome. Thanks for joining us tonight. We're excited to share a little bit about the recent trip to Zambia Lundazi. My name is Caitlin Slate, and I'm joined by Steve Sheaffer and Curtis Veiock, who are going to share a little bit about the trip. But before we get started, just an overview of Growing Hope Globally. We're an ecumenical Christian nonprofit supporting agricultural development programs around the world that work to build dignity and strengthen food security. The primary way we support our overseas programs is through our U.S. growing projects, which are community groups working together to raise funds, typically through agricultural activities to have a greater impact than any one person could have on their own. Currently, we have 44 programs in 29 different countries, and one of these programs is the Zambia Lundazi program. In February, just last month, we had an opportunity to go visit the Zambia Lundazi program. And as I said earlier, I'm joined by Steve and Curtis. So before we dive in, could you both introduce yourselves? Maybe let's start with Steve.
Sure. My name's Steve Sheaffer, and I'm a farmer here in the Polo, Illinois, Northern Illinois area, and I am the project manager leader for the Polo Growing Hope project.
Thanks, Steve. Curtis?
Yeah, and I'm Curtis Veiock. I'm regional director with Growing Hope on staff here. I work with growing project side of things in Ohio, basically east, so Ohio, Pennsylvania, and the East Coast. But yeah, this is only my second time out of the country, and I was excited about it.
Wonderful. Well, it seems like you guys had a great time. I'm excited to hear more about your trip. So just an overview, the way Growing Hope Globally works is we partner with implementing organizations and their local partners. And so this particular program is a collaboration between the Church of the Central Africa Presbyterian Relief and Development, World Renew, and Growing Hope Globally. And it demonstrates a successful integrated approach to tackling complex issues of poverty and food insecurity in Eastern Zambia. So you may be wondering where Zambia is. Zambia is a landlocked country in the southern part of Africa, and it's bordered by Malawi. And the area of Zambia that Steve and Curtis visited is in the far eastern side, very close to the Malawi border. In fact, they flew in and out of Malawi to get to the project area. Like many countries in Africa, the official language is English, but there's 73 other local languages spoken. The project that they visited is working to address a few challenges in the program area. This is a part of the world that has frequent droughts and erratic rainfall that often has flash flooding. So these two photos show a difference of about 6 months. On the left was in the fall of 2025. And then on the right was when Steve and Curtis were visiting. And so Steve or Curtis, do you want to share a little bit about what that photo is of?
I can briefly. We were headed to a small village back through what I guess I described locally here as like a cow path. And going through, and all of a sudden we hit a swampy area, and well, the truck, they didn't have the front hubs locked and didn't have it in four-wheel drive, and made it most of the way through. But unfortunately, they got stuck, and we were in the truck behind. So we kind of skirted around in the marsh there, and walked the last kilometer to the village, and let some other people and a local farmer, some of the other members, and cut some shrubs or some saplings so that they could put it under the tires, and they got it out pretty quick. But this was our first morning when we were out in the field. So this was how we kicked it off.
That's nice. You got right into it, but
yes.
it's pretty amazing to see the difference between the dry season and
yes.
the rainy season.
Yes. Everything that we saw was green. So, I mean, it was definitely, there'd been plenty of rain, precipitation when we were there. That was for sure.
Yeah, that was like one of the main things that we noticed when we flew in and started driving. It was amazing how much green space there actually was. It just wasn't something that I guess I was really expecting.
Mhm.
Outside of like, I know that they have a dry season and a wet season, but
Yeah.
it's, yeah, like you said, it's a stark difference.
There's definitely extremes. So oftentimes that can impact harvests and farmers' ability to store throughout from the rainy season when crops are harvested through the dry season. The other challenge that we'll talk about that the program's addressing is high rates of child stunting and high rates of child anemia. This is an area of the country where children are often not getting enough nutrients to sustain their growth, and especially true also for pregnant women and nursing mothers. So, with these challenges, the program had three main objectives, and that's to increase food security in the area, increase access to financial services to build resilience among these families, and improve maternal and child nutrition and health. So, we're going to go over what Steve and Curtis saw in these three areas. And we'll start with the first. First, I want to introduce you to the local partner team. Steve and Curtis, can you share who we're seeing in this photo and a little bit about what this experience was?
Go ahead, Curtis.
Oh yeah, so from left to right, I mean, you can kind of see Aaron there eating a little bit. So Aaron is with Aaron, and then Wilford is the next one. They're both with the Malawi World Renew team, and they were our hosts the whole time. So me and Steve kind of hung out with them the whole week. And then in the middle there is Lillian, who is with World Renew Zambia. And then there, the next one, the orange sitting on the steps, is Chris, then the doctor, then James. Yep. I was going to say the doctor, I don't remember his name. I don't know if you do.
I don't
Steve,
remember either.
but
no.
Yeah, he's the doctor at the local clinic that we got to visit. And they came and we got to share a meal together in one of their houses.
Just a very simple block house with a tin roof. That's which was the tin roof. That was kind of the luxury compared to, straw or thatch roof.
Yeah, and most of their meal, so almost every meal that they eat over there has nshima. So it's like a corn meal kind of starchy substance that they eat. And then we had chicken and rice and some soup and stuff that they had there. They prepared for us. They were very gracious, and it was a good time.
Great, thank
and you learn to eat with your fingers.
Yeah, yes.
Most everything is eaten, quite often with your fingers. So
it was definitely an experience. Thank you. So then you guys went and were able to see some of the work being done. And the first objective of the program is increased food security. And this is done through inclusive, sustainable, and diversified agricultural production. So essentially helping farmers grow more with what they already have. So Steve, would you mind sharing some observations that you had, especially as someone that farms in the US and sort of seeing what they were farming in Zambia?
Probably the first thing I noticed is that there was corn grown everywhere. When you're driving, if there's most of the crop we saw was corn, or else it was kind of open space, to be honest. But one of their challenges is that they've grown corn on corn on corn for years and years and years, and they've struggled with productivity on that. And you have to remember too that they only have 2 or 3 acres, or a hectare or so over there, but they don't have a huge amount that they can do because it's all done by hand. All the planting is done by hand, all the weeding is done by hand, all the harvesting is done by hand. So there's only so much they can actually get done also. So they've worked really hard they needed some help in trying to figure out new ways to get more crop off their land. So what they've done is World Renew, or CCAP, has come in and talked to them about rotating crops, which is something that's fairly common here in the United States, that we rotate between, like on our farm, it would be between corn and soybeans. And so they had not really been growing any legumes in a lot of areas. And so one instance they gave us was that on a hectare of land there, they were getting like a kilogram of corn per hectare. And after they started doing the rotations, that 2.5 kilograms per hectare was more common. So they had more than doubled what they were able to do by rotating. And what they were rotating was legumes, which was ground nuts or peanuts as we would know them. Sunflowers was also another one that was common. And then soybeans would be, probably soybeans were the most common. We actually saw quite a few ground nuts or peanuts. I was surprised by how many of those they had. But then actually looking at some of the corn, I thought the corn itself looked very healthy and like it was quite a bit of production. But they've increased quite a bit how much corn they've been able to get off by going through these, and they have demonstration plots out in the fields or out in the communities for people to see, and then they can see how much better that production is. And so it's been more heavily adopted. We learned about community plows that they had for the demonstrations, that they were encouraging the tillage and then the rotation of the crop. Here on the left-hand side, you can see one of the things that the extension, I would call it their extension, had was they were planting in like a pod here, I guess you'd say. And part of what they were also looking at was now planting in strips, which strips have become more common here in the United States. But they have a limited amount of fertilizer that they really can afford to buy. And also, you got to remember, it's a bag of fertilizer. So there's only so much of that you can also get back due to transportation and everything. So they're really trying to look at how to maximize the little bit of fertilizer or manure that they have available. So either planting it in a smaller condensed area, this actually had a little dip in it, so that when those big rains come, it doesn't wash everything away, and that it kind of kept it all in one spot. I think the strip till is probably another maybe more viable option moving forward, just as far as productivity is concerned. And like I said, there again, they kind of made divot in the soil and made it the row, and then they concentrated all the fertilizer and the manure in that strip and encouraged them to keep using that same strip year over year in order to continue to maximize the fertilizer and manure that they have. And on the right hand side, those were peanuts or ground nuts that they had. And like I said, they're trying to rotate between those 3 or 4 different products in order to increase their production.
Wonderful. It sounds like they're experimenting with different things that have been fruitful.
They are. And of course they have in Lundazi, they had what I would call like our extension, and they had plots that they were working to try different things and, see what works and what doesn't work, and then spread that to the local community. And then also, like I said, CCAP had some different projects that were out in the field that people could actually see. The one that we drove to after we were in Lundazi, it was another hour and a half away from town is where that project was, and seeing is believing, I guess, is how I would say that, is that when the local farmers see how those are doing compared to the way they've been doing it for generations, they're looking to adapt. Yeah,
that's encouraging. Curtis, is there anything that you would add that you found interesting or something that that struck you when you were looking at the different agricultural practices that you'd like to share?
Yeah, so I mean, I think Steve pretty much hit it on the head. Like this basin that's on the left there in that picture, and how they were strip tilling and ripping it on the side. I mean, a lot of that had to do with water conservation, like we talked about earlier. I mean, the wet season is pretty limited and dry season is extreme, so they have to conserve what moisture they have. But it was really interesting to see how the rotation of the crops were introduced. And they're growing sunflowers down there for oil production, for cooking oil, which I never really thought about too much. I mean, I knew that that's a thing, but I guess I didn't realize how common it was. But to see them go from ground nuts or peanuts to corn to sunflowers and back again, it was really interesting. And I really liked them, like we got to visit a lot of those trial plots to just see how different varieties of the same thing, so like different varieties of corn, were doing in the same conditions, so that they could decide on yield and that sort of thing, which I just found super interesting. But yeah, like Steve said, the extension, or what we would consider extension here, that local area, like they were trying to do different techniques there before they spread it out into the community, just so they could test it first before converting everybody over.
One of the interesting things on the sunflowers too was we found out that a lot of the sunflowers, they were taking to town and taking it to to have it pressed or to get the oil, because they really wanted the oil. But then in return of getting their oil back, then they were given the cake to the processor, and then the processor uses that for their, for whatever they need it for. So it was just kind of interesting seeing the partnership between the farmers kind of getting what they wanted for their use, and then the processors taking the cake and using that for whatever inputs they would need it for.
Yeah, they used it a lot for animal feed, like chicken feed and some other stuff. They ground up the cake. So yeah, it was really interesting to see the dual use product and get the whole, using every part of the plant basically.
Nice. Thank you for sharing that. So the next key component is this idea of increased access to financial services. And when we think of financial services, most people globally, that doesn't mean a bank. And so this is really a way for people to access credit outside of a formal financial institution, which helps build resiliency during these drier periods when the harvest may no longer be providing income for the family. So Curtis, do you want to share a little bit about what you saw with these village savings and loans?
Yeah, so I mean, this was really my first introduction to a real village savings and loan program, to just see how it actually operated and hear a little bit from the folks that are using it. So this group that Steve and I got to visit was about 12 women that were all part of this one group that they were trying to share finances. So how it was set up as, they had a chairperson, they had a treasurer, and they had a secretary. And then they had a box where they kept all the money, but there was 3 different padlocks on the box, and none of the officers had a key to it. So it was all someone else within the village that people trusted. So that's the way that they avoided kind of collusion and backdoor deals, kind of. But they charged like 40, I think it was 40 kwacha for a share. So they divvied this up. So every meeting, the women would pay a little bit that they would come into, and they would go into the general fund. And then whenever they needed to pull from that, or someone needed a loan within the village, they would cash in on those shares and use that money to buy whatever it needed. Some people bought cows, or some people bought fertilizer, like inputs for farming. Everybody in the village farmed some way or another. So it was really getting used by that. But something else that I found kind of fascinating and interesting was the group kind of offered a quote unquote matching grant. So somebody put up like a pig house, so a barn kind of structure to keep pigs. And then the loan group kind of all bought a sow that was about to have piglets. And the deal was, okay, this person builds the house to keep the pig, and then once the pig has piglets, we split the piglets amongst the people in the village savings loan group, so that way we can kind of spread the wealth a little bit. But yeah, this picture on the right is Eileen. She was the chairperson of the village savings and loan group there that we got to visit. She farmed about 2 acres, and she was farming soybeans, and she was anticipating or hoping to get 30 bags. So 30, I think it was 50 kilogram bags off of this 2 acres. And her goal was, once she harvested those 30 bags, she would automatically sell 20 of those bags so she can cash in. And she would reserve 10 of those bags for herself to keep just in case. So like later on in the year, maybe if markets get better, or if she's running low on food at the house, she could have 10 bags that she still had that she could go and sell then, rather than selling it all at once and then maybe running out of money later in the year. So she did kind of hold a reserve there for herself. But she also took a share out to get cattle. So she took a small loan from the group to buy a cow and try to expand upon the farming practices. But the terms for this specific VSLA group was the 6 month loan. That's basically how they automated it. So it was 6 month loan and it was 20% interest. But all that money that gets paid in interest goes into the village, into that box that I was talking about. It's not going to a bank. So it's just going into the box, which increases the amount that people can pull from later. So it really does. Yeah, it's just a really cool mechanism to get to see in person. And yeah, like they just, for whatever they needed for like farm supplies, like fertilizer is a big deal. Steve kind of touched on it earlier. It's not super readily available and people will have to travel to go get it. And it's not super cheap. And you need fertilizer to help crops grow. So to be able to take a loan out, spread the fertilizer, and then later when you sell your harvest to pay that loan back. I mean, I think that really, yeah, it just makes sense to me. And to see it work and have all 12 of those women that are part of that group be able to share their story with us, they all seem to benefit from it, and they all seem to enjoy being part of it. Yeah, that's kind of that sums it up pretty much.
Thanks, Curtis. Steve, was there anything that stood out to you about this Village Savings and Loan Association mechanism, or any of the stories that you heard that you'd like to share?
So it was interesting that this group was 10 years old, because they said this was actually one of the oldest groups that they've had. It was also interesting that they had started out with 16, but they had actually had some defaults in the past. And so honestly, they were kicked out. They removed them from the savings and loan. It was also interesting that it sounded like it was the men that were the problem and they had kicked them out. And it really was, in all the groups we talked to, it was pretty much all women. They really, there were a couple funerals going on that I think the men were at to a certain degree, but most of who we talked to all were the women. And this was, like Curtis had said, this was 12 women that ran this group, and they really appreciated having this and how much it had benefited them. As Curtis had said, that if you needed something, you actually had a means and a way to go get it. They just talked about with my previous, lending experience years ago, but credit here is pretty easy. You can go into town and, usually somebody, and it's not that far to town and things of that nature. But when you get out there, just access to credit is so hard and so difficult. And, this has just kind of changed their lives, that it takes that stress away of, if you really need something, there is a way to get it now where there hadn't been in the past.
Yeah, and they're collectively earning interest on their own loans,
Correct.
which is really neat too. It all sort of stays within the group.
Correct.
Thank you both for sharing. So I know the third component of the program is something that we've talked about quite a bit, and that's this idea of health, nutrition, and maternal care. And so I know you both spent time with a large group of women and young children, and the program focuses on increased nutrition. And so many of the diets of the children in this area historically have been heavy on anything that will fill the belly, but not necessarily on a diverse diet, which encourages brain growth and just growth for a child to set them up for a productive future. So Steve, can you share a little bit about what these photos are showing and what this component of the program was?
Yeah, so this was probably one of the most interesting sessions that we went to, because just to share a little bit, they told us we were going to go to a cooking demonstration, and it was like, we're going to have some people show us how to cook here. What is it? Well, I did not quite understand that it was it was part of the program that was out there with CCAP, that this was going to be a demonstration for them as far as how to use protein and fortify their diet. So it was interesting. We showed up, we're driving there, and there's these people walking down the road and they're dragging branches behind them, and you could see them carrying some vegetables and things. And it's like, I wonder what they're doing. And then I think Lillian, I think, was with us, and she's like, well, they might be going to where we're headed to. And sure enough, we turned in this drive, and here's these we get out of the truck, and pretty soon people are walking up and they're dragging branches, and they have vegetables and things of that nature that they're bringing. And I had no idea, but this cooking demonstration was for them and 120 different women and children, 120 women with their children. And they were doing a demonstration there at the local clinic. So a lot of this has been partnered around the health clinic that's there in the area. And so they were setting all this up, and everyone came and sat in front of us, and we talked, and then they broke them all into 4 different groups, and using some of these vegetables that you can see here on the left-hand side to cook these different things. And a lot of it started out with the porridge, which the porridge is, you would kind of expect it has a fair amount of caloric intake to it, but it really doesn't have a lot of protein to it. And as is stated up above, one of the biggest challenges they've had is malnutrition in the 6-month to 2-year-olds. They're not old enough to really eat, meat and that sort of protein or anything. And it sounded like they've just been told for years to feed the porridge, and, the porridge will be fine. And that's just kind of the way it's always been. And so what's happened now is they've been having these clinics for quite a while. And they actually, like I said, they split them into 4 different groups. They had porridge. The one that I recall the most was pumpkin squash that they went and mashed the squash. And then they actually took peanut butter and put it in with the porridge. Yes, I believe this one. Oh, there you go. That on the right-hand side there is the pumpkin squash and the peanut butter, and they put that in with the porridge. And they're trying to, add flavor and just make it so that it's has more protein in it, especially for the young children. Probably the comment I remember most was from one of the mothers that we were there, and we had watched this demonstration. There was also lemonade. They actually were squeezing lemons and making lemonade. There again, fortifying some water and putting a little bit more in it. There was porridge with okra, I believe, and onions. Just trying to do different things to add the protein and make it taste good. But they asked this mother as we got back in our group, and so how has this changed, or why do you go to these classes, and how has this changed things for you? And she stood there and she told us, she goes, we've had a real problem with malnutrition. And she said, we had stunted kids. They had troubles thinking, cognitively thinking, lethargic. They had the distended bellies, in the past, and things of that nature. And she's like, ever since we've been having these classes, she goes, our malnutrition is, we don't really see it by the people that are in these classes anymore. And one of the other questions was, how do your husbands, feel about you going to these classes and learning these things? And what struck me was, she's like, they can see it. She's like, it's obvious. She goes, our kids are not stunted anymore. She goes, they're vibrant. They're cognitively thinking. She's like, it's made all the difference in the world. She was kind of like, there's really no questions on if this is working or not, and whether we should be, following these examples, because to her, it was like, it's obvious and we can all see it, which was pretty powerful to see her explain that and have the testimonial explaining all that. So that was probably one of my aha moments of the trip was just, seeing that. And very, we had 120 women there. They sat there very cordial and listened to what we had to say. And it was a very good experience.
Thank you for sharing that. That's powerful for them to see the difference within their own children and for the community to support it. Curtis, is there any other observations you'd like to share about spending time with these women and the nutrition and cooking classes?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'll kind of echo him a little bit. Like this was probably one of my favorite stops as well, just because you could really see and you could really hear the impact here. But it was again, there was another funeral going on in the area, so we had 120 moms and moms to be there, but there was more even. I think they work with 160 plus pregnant and breastfeeding mothers. But yeah, it was just fascinating to be able to sit in on those cooking demos, and we kind of bounced around from recipe to recipe basically. But all the recipes were made under for the reason that these are all things that they could grow at their own houses. It's all stuff that grows locally. So it was trying to give them ideas of stuff that they could grow around their own homes wherever they came from. Because like Steve said, when we were driving in, folks were walking down the road still. And I think they said that people came from up to like 8 kilometers away walking to this cooking demo. So it was, yeah, like it's definitely something that like hits you a little bit because, yeah, like they were making lemonade because it has the vitamin C in there. They were putting pumpkins and the porridge together in the peanut butter to add vitamins from the pumpkins and then the fat and the protein from the peanut butter. And then both of the other things is like the general porridge. And then they had porridge with okra and ground nuts. So they were adding peanuts to almost everything to add that little extra bit of protein. But we ended up getting to hear a lot from the doctor who runs that clinic. And he was saying that like in the area, it used to be 35% of the children from 0 to 2 were malnourished. And he said that there's definitely a decrease. He said it's around 30% now. So it is having an impact. And it was interesting to hear how all these women that had children, once the children reached 2 years old, those folks kind of graduated out of the program and new people came in. So it was like an ever-changing kind of learning opportunity for these folks. But yeah, I mean, like Steve said, you could hear it from everybody who got up and talked about like what their experiences have been and were. And yeah, I mean, it was a great time. I mean, it was just great, like socializing with them as well. They all have good senses of humor, so it made it fun.
And as you could see in some of those pictures, the kids looked, I thought, very healthy, for the most, they looked very healthy, really. The other thing I was going to add is that they did give them a book with all the recipes and everything in it. So this was a demonstration on kind of how to do it, but there was a thick book that actually had a bunch of recipes and things also that they left with that they could take home and then use, in the future.
Wonderful. And did I hear from you all too that these vegetables on the left or in some other gathering, each woman was to bring something to contribute to the cooking demonstration?
Yeah, so to participate in this cooking demo, they were asked to bring some items. So you can see on that table, I mean, it's kind of hard to see, but there's some vegetables. Some people brought cooking oil, so they brought sunflower oil that got pressed, and they brought a handful of other items. Whatever they could cook and whatever they could create a meal out of. And they did end up cooking everything that they had. So they focused on the porridges, but then they cooked some of the other stuff and they all ate a meal together there as well.
That's wonderful. All right. So those were the 3 main things that we talked about in as objectives of the program, I guess. Oh, and just to offer it up to those of you that want to support this program or any other program, it's easy to do through this QR code, or if you visit growinghopeglobally.org, and you can take a look at all of the programs that Growing Hope Globally is working with around the world. And if you're interested in traveling, we have another trip coming up to Nepal in June. So you can follow that link or visit our website and go to travel with us, and you can sign up to travel. The sign up deadline is April 16th. But I guess, so I'll open it up to questions from our audience, but before I do that, um, Steve, what advice would you have for someone considering traveling, or what is something that was surprising to you about traveling to Zambia?
Uh, well, it wasn't surprising, but it is quite a flight by the time you get there. Uh, it was just the travel within there was just pretty fascinating. I've kind of joked with my wife that I said she would not like it at all, the travel in the vehicle, because you're going on a 2-lane road with a 3-foot shoulder on each side, and there's people walking or riding bikes everywhere, and you're running 60 to 70 mile an hour, and they don't even flinch when the mirror goes by them by 6 inches, and they keep going. But uh, it was amazing to me how almost every mile that we drove, and we drove a lot, because that is one thing that over there, it's a distance to everything that you do. But there was always somebody walking somewhere. I don't know where they were all going, but they were walking somewhere or riding a bicycle. Very, very few vehicles in that area. Some roads were okay. Some roads I would have rather had a dirt path, because the road was just, it was potholes, and I mean large potholes that you just have to pick your line and go around and through, and it's quite an experience. But I mean, people were very friendly. I would say that was very nice. Just a lot of people everywhere, and it's different. There's no sidewalks, where we were at there or anything like that. It's pretty much, dirt paths everywhere that you go. Just different, but it's always neat to experience something else. And I think, very humbled by what you see, and appreciative for what we do have.
Thanks, Steve. Yeah, there's certain things that we certainly take for granted that feel like normal to us, but maybe aren't elsewhere.
I guess one other thing I'd say is electricity. There is some electricity there. Um, not everything's hooked up to it where there is, but there was power lines, and that solar panels were becoming more popular to run things. Curtis, maybe he wants to hit on cell phones were kind of interesting. So I'll let him talk about that.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's fascinating. Just like you, or I guess some people, including myself to a certain extent, have like a vision in your brain of like what certain areas might look like, or what they might lack more so is what you're thinking about. Excuse me. But yeah, like everybody had a cell phone. Basically, everybody that we saw had a cell phone. Um, but it's yeah, like he said. I mean, I don't think we had a bad experience the whole time. We had a very interesting experience, but I don't think we had a bad experience the whole time. It was great to just like meet with the people, and yeah, like you guys both said, it really puts it into perspective more of yeah, just like easy things that we have. Like we do definitely take a lot of things for granted. And when you go to an area that not everybody has that, it definitely shifts your way of thinking. And they're just living their lives and they're loving it. So, I mean, yeah, I really like the travel. Like I said, this is only my second time out of the country, but the first time to Africa. But it was, yeah, overall, it was an amazing experience just to be able to get to see it and meet the people and to be able to see some of this work that I know that a lot of other programs are doing, but I haven't really got to see it firsthand. And especially as staff to kind of learn about it a little bit more to be able to bring it back here and share with other folks like growing project folks or new folks, to be able to talk about it a little bit easier and just yeah really have a better understanding of what overseas programs kind of look like.
Thank you. All right, so as I put in the chat, if you have a question that you'd like to ask our panelists, I invite you to please write it in the chat. Is there anything that we didn't talk about that either of you would like to share? Just a reflection on the trip, or something that you've thought about since returning.
I guess one of the only things you were talking about, some differences or some things that we didn't expect. I was surprised sometimes of what they did have, as far as there were some very uh, nice stores and nice homes and things in some of the towns and all those places. But then you got 10 miles out of town and it was like a whole nother world. And it was amazing that they were that close to each other, but almost worlds apart, like in the same country, same state, same county. Even I would compare it to here in the States. And you once you got outside of that, though, it was like a whole different world. And so that was those contrasts I thought were, like I said, there were things that I was surprised that they did have, but then you're also surprised at what they don't have, in other aspects. And those contrasts, I thought they were bigger than I was expecting, I guess is what I'd say.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. Curtis, is there anything else that you'd like to share?
I mean, no, I think we pretty much hit on, yeah, like everything that I've been thinking about. Is just, yeah, to be able to see kind of how agriculture is done in other parts of the world. I think that's fascinating to me just in itself, let alone through like a program or something like this that's trying to educate, but just to be able to see different farming practices and be able to hear why. And it's like, oh yeah, like that makes sense. Like like one of those pictures was intercropping, trying to get double the crop or double like some form of food from the same plot of land. And it's like, yeah, that makes sense. Like no, I totally understand that. But yeah, and like these village savings and loan groups, I mean, I think like that's a fascinating idea to me as well. And it just, and like Steve and like we talked about, it's just everybody who we got to visit that was part of that group seemed to have a positive experience for the most part, outside of the men who got booted because, yeah, they were spending their money on beer and such and not paying it back. But I mean, everybody had they had a positive story, and to be able to just, continue doing what they're doing. It's fascinating to see like what little or how much you can do with 2 acres, I guess, like there's a lot of stuff that goes into it. Not just the inputs and whatnot, but like all the manual labor, like Steve said, everything is hand planted, everything is hand weeded, it's all done by hand. That can't take a little amount of time. It's definitely a group effort. Um, but yeah, to just be able to see like how stuff works, really. I mean, in other parts of the world, and like we get to hear stories, like Steve mentioned, from a lot of the different stops, not just the malnutrition group or like the mommy and mommy to be kind of group, but like everything, like the conservation ag group and everything. Like you hear all these positive things of like this is what it used to be, not a whole lot of years ago, and then this is what it is. It's not 100% perfect yet, but this is where it's hopefully going. And they have like all these plans. Like you talk to them, and you listen to them, and they're like tossing out all these other ideas of different things. Like one thing I don't think we mentioned, there's corn down there that is vitamin A enriched, like specifically. So it's like, and I've never seen that before. Just me in general, I've never really seen that at all. But it's something like it's a type of corn that they grow, and it's really, really yellow or orange, I guess. But it's fortified with vitamin A. That's fascinating to me to be able to grow the crop that they grow best, but also have added nutrition to it. It makes a big difference, I think.
Yeah. And it's interesting to see how these programs support the different components support each other to make for a sustainable community development. So
yeah, there's a lot of layers to this. I learned I wasn't sure how that all works, but there's a lot of partners out there, which is great, and that's what it takes. And even seeing other people from other groups, in the country and how they all got along, and I would say honestly, they're all for the same purpose, which was which was nice to see that there wasn't this adversarial um, nature between everybody that I thought, a lot of them have known each other and things of that nature and trying to work together. And that was nice to see also. I'd say one of the other highlights that was kind of a lighthearted thing was the kids definitely noticed when Curtis and I were walking through the villages and everything, because you'd see them, there'd be a couple of them, and they'd be hiding behind a tree or a building, and then all of a sudden there'd be a few more of them showing up. And by the time we got done, we'd go from 2 or 3 to about 9 or 10 of them, peeking around the corner looking at us. And so that was fun and entertaining, and hopefully we left a good impression also.
Yeah. Well, thank you for you guys for making the trip out there. I know it was a journey, and I'm glad to hear that you were able to see some positive impacts in the community. And I hope that those of you listening are able to learn a little bit from this. And like I said, if you want to travel with us, we have one trip coming up to Nepal this summer, and we expect to put more on our website in the coming months. So definitely reach out to us if you have any questions. And I think at that, we'll end the webinar unless there's one final word that you'd like to say, Curtis or Steve.
I would just encourage anybody that's thinking about it to go do it, because it was very good people that we were with. It was very good accommodations. And it's doesn't have to be, but it's probably, like a once in a lifetime experience to be able to see what Growing Hope is doing and supporting, and also to be able to see those countries. So I'd highly encourage anybody that's thinking about a place or has interest to follow up on it and to travel and do it.
Thanks, Steve.
Absolutely. Same thing was just, yeah. I mean, it, like I said about my experience, like I had in my head what I was envisioning, and to, yeah, be able to experience is just a totally different thing. Yeah, it really puts everything into kind of perspective, and it really makes you grateful for what we do have here in the U.S. And yeah, but you also get to see the kind of work that is getting done, that is also good work overseas, and it makes a difference. So it's really great to be able to kind of see where the money from like the growing projects and all the donors and whatnot, and how it's being used. And being utilized by these folks that are ultimately the end users. It really encourages me to just, yeah, like it it makes it worth it, in my opinion. So
yeah, we all have the power to do something, and big or small. We're all in this together. So thank you both for spending your afternoon, evening, sharing about your story. And thank you all for those who tuned in to listen to this. We will share more stories from the field, and don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions. Thank you very much.